Welcome to Hey, Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Crack Rackets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. We have officially reached the final week of the 2022 college tennis season. The NCAA quarterfinals now officially upon us. All the final 8 remaining teams descending upon Champaign today for the first day of practice on the grounds. And of course, on today's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point for all of you listeners, our weekly breakdown of all the action happening across the Division I college tennis world. What does that mean on today's show? It means we get to break down an action-packed and thrilling Super Regional Sweet 16 round of action. We saw those matches unfold last Friday, last Saturday. Maddie was on the grounds at Baylor for the Bears 4-3 victory over the Cardinal. I was in Ann Arbor, one of the only people to get the chance to see the Wolverines knock out Texas 4-2. Of course, we want to recap those 2 matches, offer our takeaways from all of the Super Regionals. And then, of course, it's time for us to start looking forward. We're going to preview the NCAA quarterfinal matches, those matches taking place Thursday in Champaign. The first wave of them, 4 p.m. Eastern time, the second wave at 8. You're going to be able to watch all of that action on the Tennis One app. Of course, I am also thrilled to say I will be on the broadcast for the team event, starting with the semifinals. Will be myself, Mike Cation, Haley Carter. We'll steer the ship for all of you in what promises to be a drama-filled weekend of action. Of course, again, on today's show, still got a little bit of recapping and previewing to do. We'll start with the Sweet 16, get to our quarterfinals. Of course, if you're going to do all of that, you better have some help along the way. Thankfully, I have each and every week here along the course of this 2022 season. And once again, joining us today, we have the complete set of what we refer to as our Crack Rackets College Tennis Holy Trinity. Joining us after a couple weeks of absence, once again, your co-favorite writer on our website, crackrackets.com, a former 4-star recruit on tennisrecruiting.net, and in this instance, the lesser half of the Stachowiak brothers, as brother Nicky just graduated from Baylor. Let's give it up for our guy. It's Matt the Crack Stachowiak. Maddie, in this instance, just this once, is that fair to make that assessment?
Gruskin, I will say it's good to be back here with you guys, but this is what I've been telling everybody. Nick has the highest level of education, or whatever you want to call that, in the family, but he's still the dumbest one. So it doesn't matter what kind of degree you have. I don't care about that. I still come number 1. All right. So no, I'm not the lesser half, not even this once. And he knows this. I was telling him all weekend.
So still here's the smallest bank account, right?
Yeah. Well, here's what I will say. I've met Sister Stack. I've met Mother Stack. They are certainly numbers 1 and 2 in whichever order you want to deem fit.
That is a fact. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Here's what I'll say. I've met Mr. Stack and I've met Maddie Stack. They're certainly the loudest voices in the room. I don't know if they're the smartest, though. I might go. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm team Mr. Stack. When you meet Mr. Stack, you're just like, oh, that's Matt. I see it now. And so it's just delightful. But yeah, always a pleasure to have you back. Obviously, mazel tov to you and the family, to young Nicky, for finishing that degree at Baylor. And obviously, you got the chance to be there for the round of 16. Credit to the Baylor graduation staff for planning those weekends accordingly and accommodating your schedule appropriately.
Yep.
Of course, also joining us, a man who is never appropriate. You know him best as the forefather of the College Tennis Ranks Formula Predictions, never far from the listed UTR, one of the many dames to root for the Liberty Flames. And in this time of the season, we call him the Professor. It's Chris Halioris. Chris, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. Did you recover from your bike ride?
I did. It was quite a recovery, but yeah, it was hot. You know, who knew it could get that hot in Wisconsin, in May?
I also heard you had a lightning delay. You petitioned to go back outdoors. You were forced to go indoors. You were a bit frustrated about that fact, and then ultimately you decided to finish the ride.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's just what I heard, just so you know. But of course, again, in that spirit, that's what we're going to be discussing here on today's show. Round of 16 plus a quarterfinal preview. Of course, before we get into any of that, the reason we've been able to do all of this throughout the course of the 2022 season is because of the support we get starting from all of you. And again, to be at all of these matches, I will share a personal anecdote. It's not even a humble brag. This is my ego on full tilt. I was at the University of Michigan match. No, I'm not telling that story, Chris. Shut up. Don't even smile. Those of you watching on the live show see Chris smiling. Shut up, Chris. But I was at the Michigan match, and I happened to see the lovely Ronnie Bernstein, head coach of the Michigan women's team. And let's just say this. I'm in Ann Arbor. That's my home city. If it's going to happen anywhere, it will be there. But there were so many listeners of the podcast who were so kind in coming up throughout the course of the match and sharing their love for you, Chris, for you, Maddie, for what we're doing here at Cracked Racquets. And that means the world to us sincerely. And so that's why we do it week in, week out. We know how many of you share our passion for college tennis. And we are hopeful that we are reflective of that passion on this show. And of course, we know it's our job to get you all prepared. So thank you to all of you, coaches, players, fans, for tolerating our nonsense, tuning in, week out. Of course, a huge shout out to our sponsors as well, whether it be our friends at SwingVision, who are on the forefront of everything happening artificial intelligence in tennis. I will say this weekend, my older brother graduates from business school. Unfortunately, I will not be at that graduation. I told him, though, about the SwingVision app. And when I say this is maybe the first time in his life he's been intrigued by something I've said, he was all in on SwingVision. He's like, tell me about this app. Tell me about the business plan. How do I get in on the ground floor? And I was like, well, use your degree. It's pretty impressive. But obviously, again, once you try the technology for yourself, you'll understand the excitement. It watches your film session for you, breaks everything down, forehands, backhands, errors, makes, you name it, it has it. You can learn more about the SwingVision app by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. Of course, use our promo code CRACK20 to get a $20 discount plus 14-day pro trial. Of course, shout out to the OGs as well, our friends at Turner. We would not still be able to do this today without the support we've gotten for Turner from so long, and so many tennis players understand that support because you've been using Turner Grip forever. But did you know they've got strings? They've got their big hitter Silver 7 Tour, winner of multiple awards and accommodations. Of course, they've got multiple other appliances as well to make your tennis life easier. You can learn more about them by emailing them at sales@uniquesports.com. You mentioned we sent you the hook you up with discount, hook you up with free samples, treat you like family. Again, contact sales@uniquesports.com. Let our friends at Turner know, again, that you appreciate their support and join the Turner family today. All right. With all that said, if we break down all 8 of the round of 16 matches, which let's be clear, we're going to inevitably end up doing anyways, it will take forever. But in order to try and impose some sort of order here on today's show, let's start with our takeaways from the Sweet 16. And I came up with my list, haven't run them by you, but I think the place we have to start, and yes, I'm incredibly biased by this. And yes, it is worth saying I was at this match, and it's a little, again, this is where I want to start today. But we should be talking about Adam Steinberg for Coach of the Year. Because what this University of Michigan Wolverines team has done this season, for them to reach their first NCAA quarterfinal since 1988, which for the record is the team I grew up listening to stories about, as my coach Ed Nagel played 2 singles on that team. He had Dan Goldberg, NCAA singles finalist at 1, Malvia Washington, future Wimbledon finalist at 3. There are others I can name as well. The point being, since that team, the University of fucking Michigan, sorry, Westhoff, had not reached an NCAA quarterfinal, which for a program and a school the caliber of Michigan, that is just an unexpected fact. For this University of Michigan team, which, yes, brought in freshman Gavin Young, a piece we are certain to talk about in our quarterfinal preview, but for them to essentially run back last season's team, a team that, of course, in a vacuum, did not have a bad loss on its resume, but fell short in the NCAA round of 64, did not reach the final 8 of the national indoors. That very same roster, all the players returning, is now 25-3 and into the first NCAA quarterfinal since 1988 in University of Michigan program. Now, again, all the credit in the world to the guys, all the credit in the world to Benjamin Becker as well. At a certain point, though, and I know this is self-indulgent, but Maddie, this team, with all of those pieces, they beat TCU 4-1 at TCU. They beat Baylor 4-0 outdoors at home. They now beat Texas 4-2 in a match that was primarily outside. Those three Texas schools were all definitively in our top 7, definitively NCAA quarterfinals teams. Michigan beat them all outdoors this year. That's your coaching performance of the year. I understand there are other great performances, but I would argue 6 of the 8 teams in this NCAA quarterfinal, we knew for a fact we're going to end up being there. The Wolverines belong on this tier of school. And I apologize again, the self-indulgent rant. We can get into the mechanics of the match because there's plenty of meat on that bone. But that's where I want to start today's conversation, Maddie. I think it's worth I like who has done a better job than Adam Steinberg this year?
Yeah, it's a fair conversation to have. I mean, he is clearly a candidate for that award. I mean, I think we could probably come up with a couple of other coaches as well that deserve consideration, but no, I think Steiny, I mean, he should be in there. I mean, this Wolverines team has exceeded my expectations. There's no doubt. I mean, we didn't have them in our top 10, right? College tennis contenders previewing the season. We didn't have Michigan in the top 10. They're now in the quarterfinals. Like you said, Gruskin, 25-3 or whatever. They beat all 3 Texas schools that we had in our top 8. They've been awesome. And you know, I didn't see it coming. I didn't necessarily think they would get to this point. So, yeah, I mean, the job that they've done, and they've navigated some injuries. I mean, you mentioned Gavin Young. I mean, that guy's not even playing, against Texas in their round of 16 matchup. So I think with everything that happened this year for Michigan, for them to be at this point now is awesome. And they can continue, right? It's not done yet. There's no reason that they can't go further in this tournament.
Yeah, and to editorialize a bit more, it's the development. Andre Styler, who was on one wrist early in the season, loses that match early in the year at Harvard. You know, you look at his record overall since then, Andre Styler's barely lost a match. He lost, 1 3-setter to Cannon Kingsley in Columbus. Outside of that, you look for Andre Styler here on the season. Again, 14-1 at the number 1 singles spot, 19-3 overall. He's gotten better. I don't know if I want to do the rant now. Do you want, because I haven't let you talk yet, Chris. So I'm going to hold it for the match, I suppose, because that's really where the most impressive performance is. But if you're making a list of most improved player of the country, it's Patrick Maloney, and stop the list. Like, your list is over. Patrick Maloney is a guy now. He's one of those, and I was thinking about this because this is what I do in my spare time earlier. Some of the program redefining guys where you may not have made the boost all the way over to NCAA champion, but the guys who get programs in the mix, whether it be from their results on court, the energy they bring on the court as well. I think about a guy like Robert Kelly back in those North Carolina days, Maddie, who just, again, there was an energy about him. He was not afraid of Virginia, and that lack of fear transcended to the rest of the team. Not to be disrespectful to the Ronnie Schneiders of the world, who of course played a part, but foundationally and fundamentally, it started with a guy like a Robert Kelly. And, again, you can point to other examples. I'm happy to point you to other examples throughout the course of time. I think Riley Smith had that in him with that USC pedigree, where he was just one of those guys culturally. We saw it at the 2020 indoors. He was not afraid of the moment of any team because he thought, again, he played for USC. You need those sorts of guys. I mean, obviously, for Maloney to blank, or beat Braswell in straight sets the way that he has and beat Voedsel the way that he has, he's taken a leap forward. The jump Bickerstaff has made, I mean, the dual match record for Bickerstaff is laughable this season. 17-3 and like 14-1 for Nino, 13-4 for Beatty, 14-3 for the freshman Gavin Young, Chris. It's all internal improvements. And I know I don't want to put the ball before the cart because I still think this Michigan team has more meat left on the bone for this season. But I do think, again, because to your point, Maddie, this was not a team we had in our preseason top 10. Now, were they close? Of course they were. They were right there with the Kentuckys, Arizonas, SCs, Georgias, and I mean, both SCs, by the way, South Carolina and USC. But Chris, it's all internal improvements. And last year for Baylor, no disrespect to Michael Woodson, but you bring in a Broom, a Stachowiak, a Furman, your team's going to get better. You look at some teams this season when you bring in guys, I mean, ultimately it's just an Angel Diaz and a Shinsuke Mitsui, who one's a freshman, of course, but one's a recruit. Your team is going to get better. TCU, you bring in an Aguilar, you're going to get better. Michigan didn't do that, but everyone on the roster, Chris, got better.
Well, Yeah, it's obviously I know it's you're on your rant and it's self-indulged and everything else, but I'll temper it just a little. Great year, there's no doubt. And I've got to, I was ranking them number 2 for quite a while because they deserve to be there. At the same time, I'll still say, you know, temper it a little bit with the fact that outside of now playing Ohio State 3 times and Baylor and TCU, as you said, the level after that, it's really easy to go. I won't say really easy, but 17-4, or something like that, or 17-3 in singles. When it's great with those top teams, but then after that, there's a pretty significant drop, right? Yeah, you had Wake and Harvard in there, but then all of a sudden, it's like 2, 3, 4 teams maybe in the top 30 after that. So yeah, it is. The records, I'm not as impressed with the records. I'm more impressed with just, as you like to say, the eye test. When I watch them play, they could have played more top teams and put up more wins, than more quality wins than they had the chance to. But they've been tremendous. And, they're one of the teams that you look at that you expect them to win doubles. And when they're winning doubles, it's going to be hard to beat them.
Well, I'm going to push back on that. And this is how we can loop in the Michigan-Texas match. And I promise we're not going to spend 30 minutes on Michigan-Texas. We are going to move on after we get past this. But where I would push back is you throw out the Harvard match, the Wake Forest match, because there's no Andre Styler. You don't have to throw out the Harvard match, but Andre Styler was playing with a hand tied behind his back. And hey, Elliot Spizzirri has proven you don't get at that as an excuse, because if Elliot can do what he does, why can't Styler beat Harvard in a match? That said, again, this team's one loss since having a healthy Andre Styler was indoors at Columbus, where the Buckeyes dropped just 2 individual points throughout the course of the season. Michigan played that match very tight. Again, you look at the course of this match against Texas, the first 30 minutes, Michigan dominated them. Beatty and Maloney have dropped 1 game at the number 2 double spot. Granted, against a wounded Oklahoma team, but to play the number 4 team in the team in Harper and Ciamara and to beat them 6-1, that was a dominant performance. And look, Michigan was up 4-2 a break on 1. 5-3 Styler served for it on 3. Texas did what veteran teams do. And this Texas team is the same nucleus that made the NCAA semifinals before and went, 10-1 in 4-3 matches or something crazy last season. This Texas team fights its ass off. And they did that and responded after getting sucker punched in those first 30 minutes. Jacob Bickerstaff, 30-40, 5-all. It's the best backhand half volley he'll ever hit in his life. He knows it. Michigan survives the long rally. I think I tweeted out the point. Michigan ultimately holds their 6-5. They take it in a breaker 7-6. I was going to jump off a bridge if we lost that doubles point. But we didn't. We responded at home, as you have to do. And, one of the big controversies, I apologize. I'm going to shut up after these first 25 minutes and just let you guys talk, but I was there, so I can talk you guys through this match. The match was originally scheduled for 1. It got moved up to noon. And given that the Lightning ultimately came at 3:30, you can argue that the match should have been moved up to 11 a.m. because if you're going to move it up, let's move it all the way up and ensure that the match is played outdoors. That said, the point of the Super Regional is to engage these local crowds and give them that opportunity to show up. And the argument Coach Steinberg likely made, and I think it's a fair one, is we're already moving it up an hour. Now you're asking my fans who were planning to come at 1 to come to at 11. What are we doing there? That's a scheduling nightmare. That's shooting yourself in the foot. And why are we even hosting a Super Regional at that point? So noon was the compromise. They got the majority of the match in outdoors. That's just tangent number 1. That said, I understand why. If you're going to play outside, move it up to 11. Chris, I'll let you go in on that. Well, I mean, Chris, do you want to jump in on that, I suppose?
I don't know. To me, I know those are tough game day decisions and nobody can, as many times as you're going to say, oh, we could have moved it up another hour, that, you could say, oh, we moved it up and the weather never came. Why'd we move it up? Then people be second guessing that. I don't have that big an issue with that. I just want to make sure that you understood my remarks weren't about the Michigan team record. It was about the fact that
the stats. I guess my argument
the individual
in the
guys,
big matches, though, they've won their big matches.
Yeah. Oh no, there's no doubt. I'm just saying that to go 17-3 or something in singles when you've only played 7 top 20 teams. You know, if you're a legit top 5 team, you probably expect most of your guys to win all those matches over the non-top 20s. And then if you split the others, go 4-3, all of a sudden you're 17-3. So, you know, it's hard to say. I think that's where it's tough, is it's tough to gauge how good it was from that. But yeah, but you're right. In the big matches, they've beaten Ohio State 2 out of 3 times. They beat Baylor. They beat TCU. That's, you know, they've shown they've deserved it. But no, from the schedule or from the weather perspective, I mean, nobody wants to see matches get moved indoors, but you know, you're at the mercy of whatever happens.
Yeah. And to that point, again, Ciamara lights out, smacked Bickerstaff in straight sets. Boy, was he incredible. Harper Beatty has 4-all break point to take a 5-4 lead. Harper ends up holding 5-4, goes on a run from there. That was a really fun match at 6. Cleve Harper's ridiculous at 6, and I would put him against any number 6 singles player in the country. I'd feel good about my chances. He was healthy. He played that part. Holy shit, was Patrick Maloney good at the number 2 spot. And his serve, his forehand, I will never understand how the forehand goes in. All he does is swing and slap, and somehow that ball lands in. I know this is a stupid thing, but if you watch as much tennis as we all do, no person's racket has fit a game style more than Patrick Maloney, where it's just like, I am using this as a plank, I am smacking, and it's just working. And he has top 200 weapons right now. That's how big the serve, the forehand is. And again, him playing like this is why Michigan is where they are. For Nino Ehrenschneider, from 2-0 down the second set, he played a 4-game stretch of tennis where I don't think he made an error. Like, it was laughable, and he has been exceptional at the 5 spot. Third sets at the 1 and 2 spot. We're rounding home, folks, I promise. We're getting around in third, headed home. We go indoors. Lightning delay. It ends up raining. We go indoors. As we do, Styler is up a break, 4-2 on Spizzirri. Styler holds on a deuce point ultimately for 5-3. Then has 2 match points, 30-40 on Spizzirri's 3-5 service game. Spizzirri holds for 4-5. Styler ultimately gets broken in his 5-4 service game. It's 5-all. In the meantime, Andrew Fenty down a break, 4-1 of serve to Pierre Bailey in the third set. Fenty ultimately holds easily for 2-4. 2-4, deuce point. Long exchange, short angle volley from Bailey. Fenty on the run, calls the ball wide. There's a lines person on the line. That lines person confirms. Texas was not happy about the call. Chris, we've both seen the replay of that call. I don't think it was, I mean, again, is it a close call? Of course it is. Every call is close in college tennis. Ultimately, again, chairperson defers to the line judge. Line judge confirms Fenty's call. Fenty breaks for 3-4. Does not make another unforced error to take a 6-4 third set. Michigan wins the match 4-2. It's 6-all in the third on 1 when the match finishes. I promise we're wrapping this match momentarily. But, Chris, you've seen the call. Your thoughts on that and your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, look, I'd love to, just because they're your guys, I'd love to call you out for some egregious hook, right? But I got the video. I played it in slow motion, frame by frame, back and forth with, obviously nothing's super crystal clear on the video. And the best I could say is, I don't know if it was on the line. It was on the outside of the line because you can clearly see half of the ball on the outside of the line. So it's not one of these calls that was so bad that, it bounced inside the line and he called it out. No, it wasn't that. I mean, it was a legit super close call to that. Even in slow motion, I don't know. So I can't, and there was a lines person there. So was it a bad call? Maybe, I don't know, but it didn't look horrible to me. I'm glad it wasn't one of those, we feel like it was decided on something where we watched the video and it was 3 inches inside the line and you don't even see white. That was not the case.
Maddie, your thoughts on this result? 4-2 victory for Michigan. Where are you?
Yeah, I believe, Gruskin, I sent you my picks prior to the round of 16. And if I'm not mistaken, I hit on all of them.
Yeah,
I believe.
Well, the top 8 seeds all won, so that checks out.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I knew you were going to say something about that. But anyway, hey, I hit 8 for 8, right? So I'll take it. not surprised by the results. Texas going into Michigan, it's a tough place, tough environment. Michigan's had such a good year. Texas fights. Like you said, they have that Texas fight. So I'm not surprised that Cleve did what he did and Ciamara played well. I mean, when Ciamara is playing number 4, right? I mean, this is a guy that's been like top 5 in the country. That's ridiculous. And so he did what he did. Not shocked by that at all. And I think this is about the result that I expected. Hey, a good 4-2 win for Michigan. That's what I would have called.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, I want to get back to Texas, and Braswell was clearly not healthy, and for him to even be out on court, give that effort, it's a credit to him. And we'll get back to Spazier. I have more Texas thoughts that we'll get to in a little bit, but that's enough on Michigan. Let's move on now to our next takeaway. And again, I think this next takeaway serves all of us here as, look, I mean, it's 2 quick ones, but our top 2 seeds, they very much looked the part over the course of the past weekend. TCU, a 4-0 win over NC State. Florida, 4-0 win over UNC. I mean, let's start with the Gators, who may be the number 2 seed, but are the, I suppose, prohibitive favorite at this point to capture the NCAA tournament. Another dramatic doubles point for the Gators. It comes down to the number 3 position, ultimately a 7-6 victory for Bonetto and Vale over Seguin and Lieberman. And then, look, I mean, in singles, Shelton 0-1, he's in prime form. Goodger 1-2, he's in prime form. And then again, they're gonna find another one, whether it's Riffus up a set in 5-4. In the end, it's Vale who gets a 6-4, 7-6 victory over Matt Kiger. They're just clicking, Chris, on all cylinders. Here would be my one sticking point. It feels like every week it's either 7-5 or 7-6. The Gators escape with a doubles point. And I'm not saying, again, when you do it 20 times consecutively the way that they have, or 20 plus times, whatever the number is, at a certain point you're just good. That said, isn't there a world where just one of these days that doubles point goes against them and we get to see these Gators down a point?
I mean, assuming they play 3 more matches, I don't think they're going to win 3 more doubles points. Yeah, I think you're right. It's like I keep looking, I generally, if when I'm not able to watch the match and I'm just watching scores, I'll look halfway through and I'll see, they're going to be tight, and it inevitably looks like something's coming to either 7-5 or 7-6, and they keep sneaking them out. But yeah, they're not, when you watch them, they don't look the dominant doubles teams like you have in some of these other teams in doubles. I would not think, I would favor Michigan over them in a doubles point. I would favor Tennessee probably over them in a doubles point. Doesn't mean that's going to happen, but I would favor Ohio State over them in a doubles point. I think when we get down to these final 8 now, it's going to get interesting. I think the next match with Virginia will be another very interesting one. Both teams, I think, are good, but not great at doubles. So it could go either way. And yes, sooner or later, they've got to drop a doubles point, right?
They're 8-0 in sets that have gone 7-5 or 7-6, the current pairings that they have. 8-0 in those sets. I mean, Maddie, that would be my one concern. And credit to North Carolina, who played them so tight in that doubles point. And, again, came out swinging. And Carolina was absent a couple of players who, I believe were out due to COVID, unfortunately. And obviously to have that happen in your biggest moment, it's so disappointing for this team that's, between to not have Anuj and to not have Peter Murphy in their 5 and 6 spots already was going to be tough for them. You felt like that might have been the kiss of death. I mean, that said, 0-1 from Shelton. Like we asked, is he the guy? That's the guy performance. And Goodger, undefeated last year at the number 6 singles spot. Yeah, he started out slow, but now you look for Josh Goodger. He has cruised down the home stretch of this season. In his last 10 matches, Josh Goodger now 8-2. He's won 5 in a row. And just, whether it's Riffus, Vale, Seymour, Andrade, they're going to find one more.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the doubles, really, Gruskin. I mean, I know if you're going to nitpick, right, that's what you have to nitpick. But even if they drop a doubles point, let's say to Virginia or Tennessee or whoever it is, I think they could easily find 4 singles. I am more confident in the Gators than any other team in the country to find 4 singles matches. So I don't really care if they drop doubles. Look what they did last year. Right? They win the title and they were dropping doubles points all over the place. So for me, it's not a concern. And, in fact, you just said they've won all of those 7-5 or 7-6 matches. That means more to me. They're clutch. They're coming through when it gets tight in those big moments. They're pulling it out. So that's all I need to see. I mean, I do think the Gators benefited from a really good draw here to play North Carolina in the round of 16. I mean, UNC, guys, look, I mean, were they really even a top 16 team in the country? Really?
They were
I
on
mean,
experience. I think when you have a core of Cernak and Seguin and Kiger and who have all been in those moments, here's what I'll say. If you're the defending champs, you should beat this team 4-0. And that's what Florida did, right? That's really the standard is, are they still beating teams comfortably even at this stage of the tournament? And the answer is yes. And so to me, I agree with you. Now, I want to propose one question to both of you, and it's one Chris and I talked about off mic before. Matthias Simar down, drops his first set 7-6, up 5-4 in the third. He really has not played that many matches for the Gators here this season. Simar 6-1 in completed matches in dual match play. Meanwhile, you obviously have Josh Goodger now 14-4, as I mentioned, 8-2 in his last 10. He's cruising. Nate Bonetto, the freshman, 7-2 in dual match play as well. You have three lefties there. Now, it's three different types of lefties. I'll start with you, Maddie. Do you play Simar Goodger to keep Goodger at 6? Do you go Goodger Bonetto? What are you doing?
We had this conversation about a month ago, didn't we? I remember this. We had this conversation, and I told you what the lineup I wanted at that time. It's the same one now. It's what they're playing with. Simar 5, Goodger 6. You guys didn't like the fact that I had Goodger in there at 6 because he was struggling a little bit earlier in the season, but look what he's doing now. Right? I mean, this is the guy that I told you I wanted there. No, I roll the same lineup that we've been seeing from the Gators. Don't switch it up. Simar 5, Goodger 6. Boom.
Chris?
Yeah, for sure. That's the lineup I play. I mean, the only thing that concerns me is I see that, from the latest video on Twitter from the Gators and the Gators cribs, that Goodger just lays in bed all day. That's all I got out of that. But
that concerns you?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't care.
That's a win.
I thought that was pretty humorous. He's like, it takes a lot to get me out of here.
It's been there.
So now, just like they know that we know they're watching us, they know we're watching them.
Somewhere super producer Danny West stuff's like, you have no idea.
But no, for sure. I want Goodger in there, and I want him at 6. There's no reason for me to pull Simar, move him up to 5, and play Bonetto. Simar's just fine. Simar 5, Goodger 6.
All right. I don't disagree. I just figured I'd pose the question. I will say this on Carolina, who, again, shorthanded. That's a spectacular season and just an underrated coaching job from Coach Paul. Are you kidding? To lose Rinke, at the start of the year and to have to incorporate all these new seasons just to scrap into the round of 16, which was probably the ceiling for this team, but they hit their ceiling. And if you hit your ceiling, Maddie, isn't that inherently a good coaching job?
For that program, though, I'm just telling you guys, that Carolina program, their expectations are so high year in and year out that, I mean, for me, you look at it and go, man, I mean, with the success they've had over the past, 10 years, I mean, this, to me, was not that great of a season. Their personnel just wasn't good. I mean, they didn't have the players. I understand what you're saying, Gruskin, with their players, their personnel, maybe they hit their ceiling. But good Lord, get some better players then. Recruit, get your guys in there. I know you lost Rinke, but man, you're Carolina. You got to do better.
Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, I mean, it's, I wouldn't say it so harshly, especially even though I told you, and I'm sure Brian's not watching, but after that performance, I wanted to tweet. I take it all back, Brian. But I'm sure hopefully it's
Brian's great.
That goes over well now. But no, I think I to Maddie's point, that's one of those that, I agree with you, Gruskin. They hit their ceiling, but it was only the ceiling because of what happened in the offseason. They came into the year shorthanded, and if you don't reload, knowing they didn't necessarily know they were going to lose Rinke. They knew they were losing Will. Probably had to at least feel like it was a 50-50 deal on Rinke. If you can't load up, and maybe you had money committed and couldn't and didn't know, whatever. But once you got to that point, it's kind of too far gone. And with the personnel they had, they weren't going to be, they weren't going to beat the Virginias and Wakes of the world like that. So it was tough, but no.
Or Duke or NC State.
with the personnel they had, that was probably the ceiling, was around a 16, and that's where they got.
Yeah. All right. Fair. Well, with that in mind, again, on the flip side, number 1 seed TCU takes another doubles point, wins at the number 2 and 3 spot. And, Jong and Maxted for them have been so good at that number 2 double spot. The duo now 17-5 overall on the season. Then it was Aguilar and Vives rounding into form. They're now 9-3 overall. They've won 4 in a row, and they get a 7-5 win to take the doubles point. And then look, did they drop, sets at 2, 5, and 6? Yes, they did, but ultimately got the 3 straight set wins they needed. Famba, I don't think we talk about him enough as being an elite of the elite number 1 singles player, 14-3 at that number 1 spot, 4-4 win over Rafa, as he should do given his ranking, but that's what an elite player does at the number 1 spot. And then Sander Chong continues to just be excellent, 21-4. He's won 12 in a row, 3-3 over Stahaley. Ultimately, it was Fernley, who was so good for them at the national indoors. He continues his exceptional season, 5-6 win over Rosens. I mean, again, we had this conversation last week, Chris, so I want to start with you, Maddie. My little brother has the very good theory about TCU, which is that they are the floor of these elite teams, that TCU doesn't have bad days. Again, the deviation between their best and their worst is as small of a delta as any team right now remaining in our Final 8. Is their ceiling as high as every team? Maybe not. But I think, again, this match kind of proves it. It's like TCU, if they get the doubles point, they're finding 3 singles victories.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I mean, you look at their lineup personnel-wise, and yeah, maybe you do look at a couple other teams like a Florida or an Ohio State on
even a
paper.
Virginia, where you're just like, ooh, if Botzer plays his best, that's like all these things.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And I see what you're saying there, but again, they're deep. I mean, every single position, 1 through 6, they can compete at every single spot. And on any given day, they can beat anybody. So, again, I think TCU, like Florida, and they were the top 2 seeds, so they probably deserve this. They benefited from a good draw here. I mean, NC State in the round of 16. Is NC State really a true top 16 team in the country? I mean, it's borderline, right? I mean, you can make the argument there that maybe they're not even a top 16 team. They're 17, 18, 19, whatever, we had in the rankings. But they took care of business. I mean, TCU, they did exactly what I expected here. No surprises. And, now they move on, and it's going to get tougher for them. But hey, they have a good shot.
Somewhere Kyle Spencer's like, oh, welcome back to the show, Maddie. He's like, God, I missed you for a day. Chris, your thoughts on this TCU team?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, like Maddie said, with what you said on the floor and the ceiling. It's just that, yeah, they are so steady that you're just it's going to be really tough to come to do to them what, say, Michigan did, just
right.
Score wise, is going to be, I mean, almost impossible. They just don't have those kinds of days. They're going to be in at least 3 or 4 of those singles matches every time, even on bad days. So it's just, yeah, they're not, it's there's not the flashy necessarily that you see with some of these others, right? And you're playing whoever you're playing at 5 and 6 Vives that a lot of people don't know about, and whether it's a Jirasek or or Maxted or whatever, whoever you're playing there, that there's nothing flashy, nothing like, oh my gosh, not like you said, like a Botzer or a Goodyear that we know went undefeated last year, or or a Wampy who we've talked about all year that just doesn't lose at 6. It's, you don't have that, so it doesn't quite, it feels like the ceiling's not so high, but boy, yeah, that floor is really, really, really high too. I mean, like you said, not a lot of delta, really tough to beat them. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Vives was so good at the start of the season, down 7-6, 4-3 to Sylvester in this match. That said, again, I think Vives, that's a swing position for them. When he plays well, you're not going to beat them. If Vives is beating you, he's the inflection point player, I think, in this lineup. If Vives wins, your team probably has lost. And so, again, that speaks to the strength of this TCU team that you can have a former, top 500 player, 600 player, whatever he was in the ATP rankings at number 5. And you're like, yeah, you have to beat that guy. Otherwise, you got no shot at beating TCU. Speaks to the strength of their roster. Let's move down now to Waco. And Maddie, you were there, so the floor is yours. We get to play a postseason edition of Good Win, Bad Loss. Stanford takes the doubles point, 3-1 up on the Baylor Bears. Ultimately, Bears 4-3 victory, 1,600 people, and you cannot give enough credit to Coach Michael Woodson, what this Baylor program was able to do to make that super regional effort worthwhile and special. That said, Maddie, is this a good win for Baylor or a bad loss for Stanford?
No, it's a good win for Baylor. I mean, if you're Stanford, you cannot look at this as a bad loss. I know they were 3-1 up, guys, but it's funny, and you know how this goes sometimes when you're there and you see all the courts. Baylor was closer to clinching that match down 3-1 than Stanford was, right? And everybody could see that because Teddy and Wampy on 5 and 6 were up a set and up leading in their second sets, right? And then Finn Bass was in a third set, and he was up a break and everything. So you kind of knew, okay, it looks bad, right? You're down 3-1. But not really, because all of the other courts out there, you're in firm control. So that's just a funny scoring thing that happens sometimes. But no, I think Stanford came in. You got to give them a lot of credit. I was impressed, and you guys know preseason how much I was into Stanford, right? I really loved this Stanford team, just the talent that they have. And they showed up. I mean, doubles, I have to say, Baylor, they had chances, but it was probably one of their worst doubles points of the entire season. But Stanford came out with a bunch of energy, and they earned it. You got to give them credit there. And going into singles, hey, Adrian Boitan, he showed up, right? Arthur Ferry, we know how good he is, but he's a smaller guy. He has that, steady grinding game style. And when you're playing somebody that's just going to grip it and rip it, if they're on, you lose. And that's what happened here. I was more impressed with the two guys that I was really impressed with were Axel Geller and Max Basing. Those two guys at the number 2 and 3 positions for Stanford. Guys, you missed it, I think, but this was the Geller of old. This was the Axel Geller that we remember from like 4 years ago when he came into school and was the top junior in the world. That was this guy. He showed up. He was bombing serves, ripping ground strokes. Everything was working for him. And I was getting flashbacks. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't the Axel Geller that we've seen for the past couple years, who's had injury problem. There's been a lot going on with Axel Geller. I think we all understand that, but man, got to give that guy credit. And he played so well. And Basing, obviously, as a freshman, look, Sven Law didn't put up much of a fight. He just didn't have it. He didn't have it going. And, Max is just such a steady guy. Very good serve, good returns, good ground strokes. He can come in and play at the net. Like, he has an all-court game, and he can do a little bit of everything. With a guy like that, you're playing him at the number 3 position. It's going to be tough to beat him. And just look at his record, Gruskin. I'm sure you can look up his record, what he did this year. He's been fantastic. He's hardly lost any matches. So that wasn't too surprising. But in the end, it was the depth of Baylor, right? 4, 5, and 6 that really won it. 5 and 6, Teddy and Wampy, they win in straight sets. And I know there were 2 tiebreakers there, in the second sets. But they were in firm control of those matches. And Finn Bass, again, stepped up big. He's had a good year. He hasn't won every match, but the guy's a gamer, right? And he really, against Rotzart, a guy that's experienced in everything, Finn just outlasted him. He was the fitter player. Rotzart didn't want to grind. He didn't want to go the distance all the way in the third set. And you could see it. It was very evident. Finn said, okay, I'll take that and stay out here. And he played a fantastic third set. And that was really the difference in the match. So it was close. Doubles went to Stanford. But again, at the end of the day, you look at it and go, okay, 4, 5, and 6 were all fairly comfortable wins. I know Finn split, right? It was a third set, but it was like 6-1 in the third. It was pretty dominant. Boitan 1 and 2 over Ferry. And then obviously Teddy and Wampy in straight sets. Super exciting match, though, because, again, the crowd's looking at the score going, oh, 3-1 down. What's going to happen here? There were some nerves, but it was a blast, man. Great crowd, great environment. That's Baylor.
So many things to say off of that. First off, let me give the flip side. And or let me just continue to your point. And looking back at Baylor's resume, because they've lost 3 matches here on the season. There's something like 28-3, or something right around that metric. I believe.
Yeah.
Let me look here. Yeah, 29-3 now with that victory. I'm going to throw out the Michigan match because, to quote head coach Michael Woodson, we lost everything on that day. You look at the recipes for Baylor to beat them in their 2 other matches. You take doubles, you take 3 of 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the match against Tennessee, they lost doubles, they lost 3, 4, 5. In the match against TCU, they lost doubles, they lost 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
If you're Stanford, why you're kicking yourself is, man, did you have that recipe laid out for you? You got the victory, and you got, to your point, the doubles point, because Axel Geller, in his final college tennis match, as sometimes happens, he brought his absolute best, and he gets the victory over Soto. He plays lights out. To your point, Basing, the freshman, who's we haven't talked enough about, probably the best freshman in the country this season. Certainly him, Mitsui. There's a short list of players, even if it's not as prominent as last year. Boy, did Basing fill that Boyer gap extraordinarily well. He blitzed Sven on that day. Rotsart, who I believe is not coming back next season, you have him in the 3rd against Finn Bass. I mean, again, credit to Finn. All the credit in the world for taking that victory. And ultimately, he keeps Baylor's season alive. But man, if you're Stanford, you like where you are. You're like, this is it. This is what we played. This is what we forecasted. And you are right there. Now, again, Chris, curious your comments on that. The flip side, and we've talked about it before, it becomes as clear as ever. 1, 5, 6, find one more. That's the recipe for this Baylor team. And it's pretty rigid, not to be disrespectful. I think we both know Mati, Sven, on their best days, can hang with anyone. But we know 1, 5, 6, the Bears are probably going to get those 3. They need to find one more. And I guess your question is, how good are you feeling right now? Again, they found the 4th here against Stanford, but the competition only gets better. What's your pulse at with these Baylor Bears, Chris?
Well, I'll say from the match perspective, I said before the match that one of the spots you had to go after, especially if you're Stanford, and it's the one they didn't get that they needed to win. Finn Bass beat them, right? I mean, that's the spot. That was, as to use your words, the inflection point for the match, right? If Stanford wins at that spot, the way Basing played and the way Geller played, and they snuck out doubles, that's the one they needed to get. Getting Wampy or getting Teddy was going to be really tough. And then obviously when Adrian plays the way that he did, you're not beating him. Certainly not a grinder's not beating him in that kind of match. So the only thing I'll say, super impressed with what Finn did to me, that was the match winner for them. I do like your thought of against most teams 1, 5, 6. And then I go, we got a long way to go because we got to get through a first match. But if we get to a Florida Baylor match, are you telling me they're going 3-0 at 1, 5, 6?
I'm telling you,
so. I don't know where it's going. I don't think either team's going 3-0 at 1, 5, 6. I think it's going 2-1 one way or the other. But
I think that match is so different because of the history between those two teams. And I do think that's the match where Baylor doubles. Like, if you're drawing me a recipe, what's the doubles point Florida's going to lose? It's the semifinals against either Baylor or Tennessee. Like, I pencil it in now. If Florida gets to that round, I think they lose that doubles point. Now, again, Stanford took it to Baylor in doubles here. That said, all the credit in the world to Finn, who all season long, it's how good is Finn? How good is Finn? How good is Finn? Well, guess what? He got them, his victory gets them to the quarterfinals. Good enough. Like, that's all you can ask for. And so I would lean with you. Good win. Final word goes to you here, Chris.
Yeah, I think, and I like what the way Maddie put it when he started out. And that was that, Finn, if you tell Finn, you're going to have to grind all day and wear this guy out, that's what he's going to do, man. That guy loves to battle. He loves to fight. That's I've described him before. It looks like the energy he brings. It's like a wrestling match, man. The dude, I mean, he loves it. And when you get someone out there like Rozart that is not someone that wants to grind, 3 hours with you in a third set. You just say, well, that's what you're going to have to do if you're going to beat me, or you're going to have to hit some, you're going to have to be on and hit winners like crazy. You're going to have to become Adrian and just start smacking winners if you think you're going to beat me. And yeah, he did what I love that about him, is that if you get him into that situation, he'll grind all day with you. And yeah, I'm super, super impressed with what he did. To me, that's the takeaway for me, because I think coming in, didn't see that kind of form out of him. That if he's going to do that, they're going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah. All right. With that in mind, I'm putting 9 minutes on the clock to finish these. Then we're going to spend 30 minutes previewing the quarterfinals. Then 30 minutes until our 9 o'clock women's preview show. With that in mind, we'll go a little bit quicker through these, and we can spend more time perhaps on the back end previewing them. Is UVA a sleeping giant? I mean, you look for the Who's, for them to earn the victory that they did over South Carolina 4-0. They take the doubles point again over a South Carolina team that's been very good at doubles all year long. And then it's where they got the victories. 4-1 gets over Lambling. That's a spot you got to get over South Carolina. They get it. Gianni Ross, 4-5 over James Story. You got to get that one against Carolina. They did. In the end, was it Barbotzer's best tennis? No, but 2-6, 6-2, 6-2. What do the best teams do to everyone else? They take doubles, they sweep with depth. That's what this Virginia team did. Now, again, South Carolina's top three has been as good as any top three this season. Rodesh is up 5-2 in the second set, down a set. He's about to earn the split. Third set for Montez, third set for Von der Schulenberg. Why is this Virginia team's win any less impressive than TCU and Florida's? It's not, would be the answer to that hypothetical question that some may be thinking. Maddie, I mean, sleeping giant feels like the wrong word. They've won what, like 19, 20 in a row, something crazy like that for this Virginia team. I believe it's what now? They were 5-5, so they've won 20 in a row. Where are you with Virginia?
They're not sleeping. They are a giant. They are. They're just that good. They're hot right now. Man, they're matching up with Florida here. The Gators have to be careful. I mean, you have to be prepared for this match, because Virginia is very, very good. You look at every position.
I will not be making picks because I will be on the broadcast moving forward, and I just don't want anyone to think I'm biased moving forward, other than the obvious one. I just, like, if you're making a sexy pick, because I think the boring one is Kentucky over TCU, and it's not going to shock me to hear one or both of you say that. The sexy pick is pick Virginia over Florida, because tell me why they can't do it.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a few minutes, so I'm not going to give you my pick there. But look, Virginia is so hot right now. I mean, I wouldn't really want to play that team. I mean, I talked about Florida getting a good draw with UNC in the round of 16. That's a tough draw to match up with UVA in the quarterfinals. They're just so good at every position, right? You look 1 through 6, you've got a guy like Barbotzer playing number 6. You've got a guy like Gianni Ross, who's been around for like 6 years now or whatever, playing 5. So you've got the depth there. And then you've got the younger, more talented guys up top playing 1 through 3. Yeah, I mean, this team is very, very good. And, again, I think we'll get into it in a little bit, but there are certain positions that they can match up with Florida. I'll just put it that way. They have, I think, a certain recipe to potentially pull off an upset there. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but this team they're as hot as anybody in the country right now. And, if they end up beating Florida, I mean, shouldn't be a complete shock. We'll all be a little bit surprised, I think, but man, they've won 20 in a row.
Yeah, completely fair. Chris, I'm boxing you out of this one. We'll get the chance, obviously, to talk about them in our quarterfinal previews. Let's move on now to Tennessee. It's Harper right now playing at that 5 spot. It's Prada at the 6 spot. Ultimately, we're not moving on to Tennessee. Just kidding. We are moving on now to Ohio State, who earns a 4-2 victory ultimately over USC. I mean, again, when you look for this Ohio State team on the road, they lost the neutral site of TCU, Big Tens in Ann Arbor. They lose to Michigan. This was their first outdoor match of consequence. And ultimately, they earn a 4-2 victory over USC. Now, USC came awfully close to stealing the doubles point. In the end, it's Ohio State who sneaks out with that doubles point. Or, excuse me, no. Ohio State dominant at the bottom half, but it was Stanek and Fry who came out to that thunderous lead at the number 1 spot. But then, look, USC came out swinging. They took 4 first sets, and they got them, where they needed them most. Stachowiak got that first set was at 1, and Strade got that first set at 5. They ultimately get first sets at the 2 and 3 positions. At the 2 and 3 and 4 positions. There it is as well. But credit to the Buckeyes. At home, they kept fighting, and ultimately for this Ohio State team, they remain undefeated on the season in Columbus. And in the end, I think perhaps most importantly for him, Jake Van Ember gets his biggest victory of the season. He ultimately takes that 4-2 win over USC. I mean, this is Ohio State's best win of the year, right, Chris? Because again, I don't think the indoor, I know before the national indoors, those wins were impressive, but this was an Ohio State team now in an uncomfortable environment, and they beat a peaking USC team.
Yeah, certainly the most promising, right? I mean, you sort of expect them at home indoors to just beat up on, and you don't even care who it is, right? I mean, it could be Florida coming to town, it could be, it could be Michigan coming to town, it could be whoever, the peak, teams they did beat, Kentucky coming to town, Wake Forest coming to town. They beat everybody indoors in Columbus, but outdoors is a different story. So to get a win outdoors over an outdoor team like a USC, and especially to get the win over Steph at 1, and like you said, the win for Jake, who's the guy that, look, let's be honest, if you're looking at USC and you say, or at Ohio State, and you say, we got to beat these guys, where are we going to beat them? That's a spot you absolutely have to beat them. If you don't beat Jake Van Emberg at 4, you're probably not going to beat Ohio State, because you're in all likelihood not beat. I mean, there are very few teams that are going to beat JJ Tracy at 3. Okay, you're probably not sweeping the top 2. So it gets real, and beating them in doubles is really tough. So if you lose doubles, you lose one of the top 2, and then you lose to Van Emberg and Tracy, the match is over. So that's a really good sign for an Ohio State team. And I'm sure it's got to feel good for them going into round 4 with Michigan now, knowing they're outdoors. It's a little momentum and a little confidence builder for them.
That's a great win from Boulay at the number 6 spot. And again, he played really well against Speedy and Madison, and that match feels like a toss up for sure. But again, let's go to the next point here, the teams that are a year away. If you're USC, you're without Peter Mack in this match, who unfortunately tests positive for COVID, ultimately unable to play. I mean, again, Stachowiak, a rare loss to Kingsley. That's just top 150 tennis. That was good stuff in 3 sets, but he's back. I mean, Fry got that 3-set win over Votcel, but this whole core comes back for this USC team, Maddie. Quarterfinals is the benchmark for them next year, right? And we're doing these quickly. One, again, keep it to 1 sentence, because we got to get on to our quarterfinal previews here.
I think so. Out of all these teams that we just listed on the graphic there, I think USC maybe has the most promise.
Chris, quarterfinals the benchmark?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they should be a quarterfinal team next year.
All right, Texas, who again, I could not have been more impressed by the fight. And I know I tweeted this out. We didn't do a good enough job. Elliot Spizzirri played the match with a year with 1 wrist. 1 wrist. He was slicing backhands because he could not hit the 2-hander early in the season. Works his way to the number 1 spot. 6-all in the third after being down 4-2 a break, and 5-3 and 5-4. Styler serving for it and down match points. And yet you're not going to find a better fighter, a better person. Every coach right now would take Elliot Spizzirri on their team. Obviously, it was a rough year for Waldy, but, another year back, maybe, it's just a more experienced version. I know they lose Ciamara and Chichi, but Cleve is back. Braswell's back. Bailey's back. God, my little brother has not stopped talking about Bailey. He's like, that's the guy, Alex. I'm telling you, he was so impressive. I don't think that's an unfair assessment. Again, it was an injured Braswell. Everything broke against this team. I think it's like, this is the national championship window. Next year, they're thinking national championship, Maddie.
Well, yeah. I mean, remember preseason this year, we had them in that conversation. So next year, I think we'll also probably have them in that same conversation. I mean, Ciamara is definitely a loss. Chichi's done some good things. He's a bit of a loss. But yeah, overall, you look at what they're bringing back. And of course, they're going to compete with any team in the country. Hopefully they can just have some things break the right way. Everything broke the wrong way for them this year.
Yeah, well said, Chris. What's the expectation for them? Preseason top 5 right now?
Yeah, I think preseason top 5, and I think your expectation, if you're them, is probably we're making semis. Obviously, we want to win the title, but the expectation is we should be at the final site for sure.
Okay, South Carolina, another year for Story. Who gets more comfortable? I mean, everyone's back in that roster, and you bring
Rodriguez is back. Lambling's back.
Everyone's back for the team next season.
Are you sure?
I am very sure.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'll start with you here, Chris. Preseason top 5? Just give me a number.
Top 10 for sure.
I'm going to say, yeah, if I had to pick a number, I'm going to go like 7.
Yeah,
6,
if 5.5's the over-under, you're taking the over?
Yeah, I'm going to say just outside that probably, but
top 10?
But really, top 10 for sure.
Yeah, Maddie, you're shaking your head to indicate top 10 as well. NC State. Yeah. Top 10? Did we see enough from that core this season, or was it just, again, they're more in that 10 conversation? Start with
who's gone? Is Rafa gone?
I believe so.
See, it hurts because he played one. I mean, yes, you've got Catry and Stahaley and Rosens, I think, and a lot of these younger guys like Braden Schick, and I just. You lose your number one. Who's coming in? What is their I mean, they're going to be so young again. They're still going to be such a young team. I don't know if I'm ready to say top 10 right now.
I would away from a year away. I can handle that.
Could be.
That feels about right. Chris, final word here.
Yeah, I think they're certainly going to be the sexy pick as the big jump team, because sometimes, if they're the guys, you just don't know if they are, but there are the teams where the freshmen all of a sudden make that jump to the sophomore year. And they've got so many of them that if it happens, yeah, but I'm with Maddie. If they had AG back, that's, they just need that. They need that something up top. They've got tons of depth, tons of young talent. They just need a stalwart at the top of the lineup that they don't have right now. But yeah, they could. I wouldn't put them there to start, but they could absolutely be a top 10 team.
What can I say? I'm always needed. AG's everywhere. With that in mind, again, let's move on now to our quarterfinal previews. And I know we didn't talk about Tennessee, but obviously they are 4-0 winners over Florida State as well. And we'll be able to get into them here as we preview Thursday's quarterfinal matches. These we're going to do chronologically. So let's start with the 4 p.m. Eastern time matches. We'll then work our way towards the 8 p.m. Eastern time matches. Let's start with, in my opinion, and I know I say this, it's a running bit here, but the best rivalry right now in college tennis. Two teams that genuinely hate one another in Baylor and Tennessee. And obviously there is some history between these two teams. This is a rematch of last year's NCAA semifinal, a match all of us were at. Baylor ultimately advancing with a 4-2 victory over Tennessee. That match clinched by Matias Soto, a 7-5 victory in the third over Johannes Monday. Of course, Johannes Monday and the Volunteers won the doubles point in dramatic fashion. 7-5 victory at the number 1 spot, 6-4 win in the end at that number 2 spot. Was an emotional doubles point. I mean, there were 3 3-set matches, and that Boitan-Walton match at number 1 was particularly spicy. But look, Tennessee got their revenge in the National Indoor Semifinals this year, and I mentioned that recipe earlier. Doubles 3, 4, 5. It was that doubles point, and at the time, Walton and Harper were playing number 2. They've now obviously moved up to that number 1 spot. But I mean, again, for this Tennessee team, for these Baylor teams, no secrets between the two of them. Tennessee 25-7 overall, but of course that was keeping in mind that they've been without Johannes Monday, their superstar sophomore, for various points, and missed him for about 6 weeks during the course of this season. I mean, the biggest question, let's start with the Tennessee side. Well, again, let's just go match calculus. I just want to hear from each of you what you're looking at. And I think the biggest question, we do have to start one from a lineup perspective. What's the biggest lineup question? It starts with the University of Tennessee at 5-6. What are they going to do? And of late, they've been playing Harper and Prada. And to Prada's credit, he got a straight set win at 6 over Florida State. Seemingly, again, one of his better victories on the season, but we have not seen Angel Diaz throughout the course of this NCAA tournament. Of course, Diaz has played the majority of the dual matches for this Tennessee team, 12-10 overall in dual match play. We know the Baylor lineup. We know the Tennessee lineup. We even have seen a couple of the matchups a couple of different times. I'll start with you, Maddie. Yeah, or you know what? This is an easy one. Maddie, you give me the Baylor match calculus, and then ultimately I want to hear your prediction. No, start with the Baylor match calculus.
Look, for the Bears, you just said 5-6, Gruskin. I don't really care who Tennessee puts out there at 5-6. Let's just assume, maybe based on what we've seen, Harper and Prada, right, at 5-6. I will take Teddy Paralek at 5 over Harper, and I'm going to take Wampy at 6 over Prada. That's 2 points on the board for Baylor. I feel very good about those spots. The other spot that I'm looking at for Baylor would obviously be Adrian, right? Number one, he's been so good this year.
And earned a 3-2 victory over Walton at the indoors.
That's right. I just watched him play against Arthur Ferry. I mean, if Adrian brings any resemblance of that form, he'll beat Adam Walton. Adi's the more aggressive player, right? We know Walton is a smooth operator. He's going to make a lot of balls. But like Chris talked about before, hey, if Adrian's playing that well and he's gripping and ripping and hitting those shots, I mean, what are you going to do? You can't do much. He serves bombs. I mean, he's ripping the groundies. There's not much you can do. So I like Adrian in that matchup as well. So I'm looking at for Baylor 1, 5, and 6. Feel pretty good about those. Now, where I'm a little bit concerned would be the other 4 positions, 2, 3, and 4 in singles. Look, Monday and Soto, we know Matias has beaten him in the past, right? On the biggest stage, Final Four match in Orlando last year, Soto beat Monday. I don't know if I feel as good this time around, though. Matias hasn't had a great year, but he
let me stop you there. Monday, Matias Soto, 7-6-5-4 up on Monday at the National Indoors, beats him in 3 sets, as you mentioned last season as well. You look at this matchup, just again, from the statistics each team have put up throughout the course of this season. For Monday at that number 2 spot, he's 17-3 overall in the year, 14-3 at that number 2 position. Obviously, a couple of those losses coming right as he was working his way back from injury. You look for, obviously, Matias Soto. You mentioned the record hasn't been his best season, but he's still been pretty solid. Actually 13-10 overall, 8-10 at the number 2 spot. But I should say he's been most solid when the team needs it most. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off there, Maddie, but Chris, sorry, go ahead. You look like
no. I was just going to say doubles probably, like, again, if you're Baylor, 1, 5, and 6 in singles, and I mean, the doubles, I think, I almost look at it, and I don't know if it's recency bias, right? But Baylor just played a poor doubles point against Stanford. I have to favor Tennessee in the doubles. Could Baylor win it? I think they could. I wouldn't favor them. There's a very good possibility that the Bears have to pull out 4 singles matches to win this. And I think they could do it. It could come from Soto against Monday. It could come from Finn Bass at 4, right? The way that he's been playing, Mitsui's a tough out. We know that. Even Sven Law, right? I mean, we know how talented he is. If he shows up and he's playing well that day, could he beat Emil Hud? Sure, he could.
And he came damn close in that 4-6 match at the National Indoors. Had a million chances to extend that one.
So again, to answer your question, Gruskin, and I'll shut up here, court 1, court 5, court 6, and you're probably going to have to pull out another singles match at 2, 3, or 4.
Interesting. Chris, give me the Tennessee side of the calculation, then get straight into it. Give me your prediction.
Yeah, I think the winner, I'll go straight to it. I think whoever wins the Law HUD match wins the match.
Interesting.
I
and
think
just quickly, Sven lost 16-7 overall in the year, 11-7 at the number 3 spot. Emil Hud 12-4 at the number 3 spot, 20-7 overall on the year. Make the case, Chris.
I have the same calculus Maddie does. I go Baylor at 1-5-6. I go Tennessee at Dubs 2-4. Like, I don't think you're beating Monday or Mitsui. Finn Bass could beat Mitsui, but I mean, I'm going to favor Mitsui and Monday there. I'm going to favor Tennessee at doubles. So, I've got 3-all. And then, to me, both HUD and Law are, well, who shows up? Like,
and it's a fun contrast of styles. The big serving HUD versus the well-rounded game of Law.
Yeah, and when Sven Law, when he's on and he shows up and he's in it, he's tremendous.
Yep.
When he does what he does last weekend, not so good. So, what are you going to get? If you get the Sven Law that can play, they can win. And I think, I will lean Baylor because in that 4-3 kind of pick where I say, I think whoever wins that match wins it, doubles is always the most toss up of anything. And I've leaned Tennessee in doubles. That could go the other way more than I would say, singles matches. And then, I think I feel really good about the 1-5-6 for Baylor. I feel really good about Monday at 2, pretty good about Mitsui at 4, but not as good as I feel about the others. So with just a little more question mark at the 4 and the dubs, and then leaving 3 open, I'll lean Baylor, but man, it's going to be a tight match.
My whole thing is the urgency. This Baylor group, La, Soto, maybe Boitan, is this the end of their run? Like, it is more so than I know this is it for Adam Walton, but just about everyone else on that Tennessee team will be back next season. And so I'm not saying this is it for the Baylor Bears and that there's going to be some massive drop-off because things are humming down in Waco, but there's an urgency for this Bear group. And again, Soto's 1-0-1, but essentially 2-0 against Johannes Monday. And
don't sleep on him, Chris. I was just going to say, Matthias, man, the guy can play. Even his second set against Axel Geller was unbelievable level of tennis. Matthias lost the first set. He gets down to break. But God, he had so many chances to break in that second set. I mean, he was right in it and could have nearly won that set against Geller playing his best. Matthias Soto, if he plays well, we know he can beat Monday.
Can I just also say, on the flip side for Tennessee, if you think Adam Walton's going to lose this match 2-2 and roll over, I understand how well Adrian's playing. You don't know Adam Walton. Like, this is potentially his final match on the job. Yep. Obviously, Boitan rolled him earlier in the season. He's ready for that matchup outdoors here today. That's going to be just an absolute war. And then again, the one thing Tennessee has going for them more than anything else, they fear no one. I mean, I'll say it openly, and I do not personally feel this way. If you were to take a poll of players and coaches, who is the team they dislike the most? It would be Tennessee, because Tennessee's got an FU edge about them. They don't care who they piss off along the way. And you know when you need that most? At the NCAA tournament. All of the intangible qualities this team has. And I am currently sitting in Indianapolis. I can hear Shinsuke Mitsui practicing in Champaign right now on the practice court. That's how loud these Volunteers are. It's going to be a 4-3 match. I don't know who's going to win. Again, you're both picking Baylor?
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
I am. But I think it could be epic, and I am nervous about it. I really am. I think Tennessee could definitely win this match. I'm not picking against my Bears. Give me Baylor 4-3, but man, this is one to watch.
Chris, do you want to take the flip side just to stick with the SEC, or are you going to take with the Bears?
I mean, I sort of got to stick with the bracket I filled out, I think.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So I've got Baylor. I've got Baylor there, and I'll stick with it.
All right, I like it. Well, then let's move on now to our next 4 p.m. Eastern time match. And, again, that's for Baylor, Tennessee. You can find that on the Tennis One app. Match number 2 at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Your defending NCAA champs, University of Florida, have not lost a match since the National Indoors when they fell to Texas. They're now 26-2 overall. Again, have won 20-plus doubles points consecutively. SEC champions, regular season SEC champions, undefeated during that time. They've also beaten the University of Virginia earlier this season. The Gators a 4-2 victory indoors at the National Indoor Championships. Of course, Virginia did start this season 5-5 overall, but they've won 20 consecutive matches since. And all 5 of the teams they lost to still alive in the 2022 NCAA tournament. Again, this Florida team peaking on all cylinders. And, again, this was a really fun matchup. Now, Florida did take the doubles. Oh, is this an 8 p.m. Eastern time matchup? I may be incorrect about my time. I apologize. I'm going right, left. I think you are right, super producer Daniel Westoff, and I apologize for that fact. So I appreciate his correction. This is a 8 p.m. Eastern time match. We're going to stick with it still because I'm just so deep into this intro. But, again, Florida actually took a comfortable doubles point in this one, 6-3 win at number 1 spot, 6-2 win at the number 2. Now, Virginia's got different doubles teams since that moment, but we are going to see some similar singles matchups. Riffice is going to face Montez this time at the number 2 spot. Riffice got him 3-2 when they played indoors in Washington. Shelton clinched the match 7-5 in the third over Chris Rodesh. That'll be your rematch at the number 1 spot. It'll be Van der Schulenberg versus Valle. Again, Van der Schulenberg, a 3-4 victory over Duarte Valle at the indoors. Now, all the same pieces, it's going to be Botzer, Goodger, and this time, I suppose, Matthias Seymour for, same pieces for Florida, for Virginia in the bottom 3, different order now, different pieces for Florida, but so, none of those rematches there. You throw those bottom 3 up, at the top 3 similar. Again, Virginia's won 20 in a row. Florida's won over 20 in a row as well. These are 2 of your hottest teams in the country. I mean, I know it's an easy case to make, Maddie, but perhaps less so against this Virginia team. What's the match calculus for Florida in this one?
Well, if they win dubs, I think they're going to be fine, right?
If they win dubs against anyone, they're fine.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if they win the doubles point here, I don't think they're going to lose this dual match. So let's assume that they lose double. Let's say you wins doubles. I do like Florida at 1 and 2. Shelton and Riffice, the way that they've been playing, going up against 2, Rodesh and Montez. I have to favor Ben Shelton over Chris Rodesh right now. I think it could be a good match. I know they played earlier. It was tight. Shelton, though, I'm not going to pick against him. I will take Ben Shelton in that match. And again, Sam Riffice at 2. Montez is going to be a tough out, but I've got to stick with Sam there. So there's 2 points that I think the Gators can look at. Now, 3 and 4 could be tough, potentially. I think 6, you look, and I know Botzer's down there, but Botzer is such a wild card. Goodger, to me, is playing the way that we know Josh Goodger can play now. We're seeing signs of like last year's Josh Goodger. I think I like him down there at 6. So I look at, for Florida, 1, 2, 6. And then it really could come from any of the other courts. Could Seymour beat Gianni Ross?
Well, just quickly to your point, Ben Shelton's 14-2 at 1. Yeah, you feel pretty good about him.
Yeah.
Sam Riffice, 17-1 at 2. Yeah, you feel pretty good about him. Josh Goodger, as you mentioned, 7-2 or 8-2 in his last 10.
Yes.
And undefeated last season at that number 6 singles position, just to provide the stats for you there. Yeah, yes. You feel pretty good about those 3 points. Now, in between, Valle's now 16-4 at the number 3 spot. Andrade 18-4 at the 4 spot. And, it's been by committee, but they are 16-3 at that number 5 spot now. To Chris's point earlier, they're beating who they should be beating. But they are beating who they should be beating. So to your point, there's not a weak position in this lineup, but let me just finish here. 1, 2, and 6 you like most. What is the 4th point you like the most?
I mean, I hope it's doubles, right? For Florida, you hope it's doubles. If not, I will probably go with probably based on the matchup, court 4 and Andy Andrade. I do think you guys know how much I like Dr. Vaughn. I think it's a tough match for Duarte. He could win it. And Seymour again at 5 against Gianni, that's tough. So if I have to pick another singles court just based on the matchup, I'll take Andrade over Getz, right?
I like that. No,
Yeah.
Same thing. And so with that in mind, let's do the flip side. I want to provide some added context because the new doubles pairing, Getz and Montez, 13-4 overall. They're 8-1 at the number 2 spot. They got the win over South Carolina. Gianni and Van der Schulenberg, 6-2 overall, 4-2 at the number 3 spot, but they've won their last 2 as well. Give me the 4 points you'd like most for Virginia, Chris.
Well, I would, if I'm Virginia, I'm definitely looking at 3, 4, 5. Right. I mean, I gotta like Doc Vaughn. I'm gonna take my chances with Getz and Gianni, and then I think it's doubles. I'm right with Maddie in that I like 1, 2, and 6 on the Florida side. Yep. I actually like Virginia, and if Florida doesn't get the doubles, it's tough between that 3, 4, 5. I think Van der Schulenberg's definitely gonna have the edge on Duarte. I would want to lean that for Florida, that fourth would come with Andrade. I just don't love the matchup. I want high spin to the gets one-hander, and Andrade hits a flat forehand. I mean, it's not the best, the best style matchup in the world for him. So it might come down to Seymour. I don't know.
Yeah. So with that in mind, give me your pick.
Oh, I'm still going Florida. I mean, I've got Florida all the way. I'll take the Gators. They'll find their four wherever they find them.
So as you mentioned in the last match, by the way, number 3 singles was the inflection point match. What would it be in this match for you, Chris? Is it 4?
Yeah, 4 is the swing match for me here for sure.
And interesting, Matty seems to feel that same way as well. So you're taking Gators, what, 4-1, 4-2? What do you have, Chris?
No, I mean, I again, this is at worst a 4-2. I think it's a 4-3 match.
I like it, Matty.
I do too. I agree. I'm sticking with Florida. You guys know they were my team all this year to repeat and win again. So I'm not going to stray from that. I'll take Florida 4-3. It could come from, if they win dubs, then it could be 4-2, but I think they're going to find 4 regardless, no matter how they do it.
And as a reminder, this match 4-2 Florida, Shelton in the third 7-5 drama at the end of the match as well. Not the most kind feelings between these two teams at the end of that match. All right, let's move over to the other side of the draw. We talked a lot about Michigan at the opening of this pod, so we don't have to spend as long on them here. But look, it's Michigan, Ohio State. And I will say this, for a Michigan team that made the National Indoor Semifinals back in 2020, but hasn't been at the final site of the NCAAs, in the super regional era and hasn't made a quarterfinal since 1988, there are a lot of pressures that come in playing on this stage, the night match, 8 p.m. Eastern time. That said, all of that is alleviated, not all of it, but a lot of it, by knowing that it's Ohio State across the net. And this enemy, and these nerves, and this match. And by the way, all of that logic applies to Ohio State as well, who after losing to TCU in the round of 16 last year, the disgust on every Ohio State roster member's face of just round of 16 is not the standard. And now they're back in the quarterfinals. Again, round 4 between these two teams. Michigan, a 4-0 win when the two teams played in Ann Arbor. Ohio State, a 4-1 win when these two teams played in Columbus. The breaker in Madison. Michigan, a 4-2 victory in the Big Ten Championships. Michigan drops the doubles point in that match, their first match fully without freshman Gavin Young, but they found straight set victories at 2, 5, and 6 as they've continued to find throughout the course of this season. And look, when Styler and Kingsley played, all 3 times, it's been, fantastic tennis. Styler, straight set win in Ann Arbor. Kingsley, 3-set victory in Columbus. Styler, the 3-set win in Madison. We know the matchups. We know the matches. It's likely to be exactly the same as it was in Madison. Not anticipating Gavin Young in doubles either for these teams. I mean, again, Maddie, I like you more than Chris, so you make the case for Michigan.
Oh, man. I'm so torn on this one, guys. I'm so torn. I don't want to analyze it too much. It's a rivalry match.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to be so good. I think it's going to be so close. I do think Michigan can win at multiple positions, right? I mean, I could see them winning court 1. I can see them winning court 4. I can see them winning doubles, and then 5 and 6 too. I think they have chances at both of those positions. I don't know where the points are going to
also just beat Vogtsel at 2. Like, let's be clear. And Fenty had set points on Tracy at 3. Like, I know I'm making, but to your point,
is why,
but Vogtsel should also absolutely beat Maloney on the right day. Like,
right.
I see it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And again, am I really going to pick against JJ Tracy in the NCAA tournament? Like, no, I'm not. So I just I think it's going to be so close. My head is telling me to pick. I think I'm going to pick Ohio State here.
Good. Yes.
But I am nervous about. I think I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think my pick could be wrong. I'm just going to flat out say
give me just because I'm asking this from an analyst role. Give me 4. If Michigan gets 4, your best guess for the Michigan 4.
Doubles 1, 4, and 5.
Okay, I like it. Chris, Ohio State flip side. I feel like we know their calculus, but I want to hear it from you anyways.
Well, certainly for Ohio State, it starts with dubs. I mean, we know how good they are in doubles. I think
They've lost just one match where they lost the doubles point. Any takers? Yeah, it
We
was
know.
against Michigan, Big Ten championship. Anyways, go on.
yeah, I mean, I think for Ohio State, you say, hey, we get dubs. Obviously, Tracy's a spot that you're taking, and so then two more. I mean, I think you have you absolutely have to like Voetzl over Maloney. I know Maloney's playing great,
Yeah.
but if you're the Ohio State side, you have to think that's a spot for you. So I'd say you're looking at 2-3 dubs. I don't feel great about. I mean, I think the Styler Kingsley match is just a toss up. So it's not one I would look at and go, yeah, that's the one. That's the one we got to get. So then I think you're down looking at 4, 5, 6. I guess I'm gonna go Trotter at 5, but geez, I don't feel great about it. I just think that you find one of them. I say between 4, 5, and 6, you know, if you can get dubs 2, 3, you find one of those. I don't know which one it's going to be.
No, I think we all agree the inflection point in this match, and it's the same in every match, but in this one, maybe more so than any other, it's doubles because just to play a team for the 4th time in a season, to expect to find 4 singles victories is just damn near impossible. And so maybe this one more than anything else. That said, if it is 3-all, Maddie, what court's it coming down to?
Oh, 1.
I love that. Chris?
Court 1.
Same question, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who's gonna play the biggest grind. I mean, those guys, they may go 3. I don't know that they play super long points. I mean, it could, but I think I might lean to Aaron Schneider and Trotter.
All right. I like it. With that in mind, it's time, Maddie. Give me your pick.
I'm gonna go Ohio State 4-3. I don't know why. I really don't know why. It's just kind of a feeling I have. I'll take the Buckeyes 4-3, but I think I might be wrong.
That's fine with me, Chris.
I'm going to say Ohio State takes the doubles point and Michigan wins 4-3.
No.
Wow.
I don't like this at all. I mean, again, no picks from me. That feels, again, 4-3 is the pick from both of you. That's really what you're picking. I understand that. I'm just forcing you to put a team next to it. But yeah, this one's going to be fun. 8 p.m. Eastern time, Champaign. Be there. All right. Last, but certainly not least, if college tennis had a show on TNT and CBS and we had a Charles Barkley, and unfortunately we have a Chris Halioris, not a Charles Barkley. Again, yeah, shit out of luck. Sorry. That said, and don't do a Barkley impression because when I mentioned getting us in trouble, that's exactly where we start, Chris. But with that in mind, if there was a CBS show, all of the in ESPN, we have 30 of our pundits filling out the bracket. Everyone and their mother as the sexy pick, I feel like would be taking Kentucky over TCU. I just feel like that would be the pejorative, like, oh, I need to find an upset in these 3. Let me take that pick. I mean, look, TCU 26-4 again, your number 1 overall seed. Who have they actually lost to this season? Tennessee, Michigan, Baylor. Kentucky 24-7. I don't think there's really a bad loss for them on their resume. Like, yeah, South Carolina had their number this season. That's it. Like the other, and South Carolina was a round of 16 team board. If you put South Carolina in Kentucky's draw, they very well could have duplicated that result. I don't think that there's any bad losses in the bunch. That said, again, for this Kentucky team, we know what their recipe is, right? We know it's usually 2 singles, 3 where they're 21-6, 3 singles where they're 23-2, 5 singles where they're 18-5, and find one more. The problem is a strict pathway to 4 points just doesn't work against this TCU team because they are competitive everywhere. And again, this is just a really fun matchup, I think, across the board. Draxel versus Famba. What a fun contrast at that number 1 spot. Aguilar versus Diallo. What a fun contrast at the number 2 spot. Hurrion versus Jong may be the best matchup on the board at 3, and you can maybe circle that one as your inflection point in the match right now, not to get ahead of you both. But Maddie, give me the calculus for TCU.
Yeah, no, I think court 5 might be the inflection point. I think for TCU, I like them at I like TCU a lot, I think, at 4 and 6. And in dubs, I do. I don't think Kentucky's going to win this doubles point. I favor TCU pretty heavily in doubles. So for the Frogs, I say, you win dubs, you win 4, you win 6. And then you just find one more. Like, again, for Kentucky, you have to be looking at the top 3 going, we might have to sweep 1 through 3. And those are all matchups that could happen. Could Draxel beat Famba? Sure he could. Could Diallo beat Aguilar? Sure he could. Could Hurrian beat Jong? Sure he could. But it could also be reversed, right? Any of those other 3 could beat the Kentucky guys. So I like TCU a lot, doubles 4, 6, and, they're going to find another point, whether it's 1, 2, 3 or court 5. 5 could be pivotal, though, because, that's going to be who? Vivas and Lapidat. I mean, that's an interesting matchup there. If you're Kentucky, you have to have that, I think. I think court 5 is a must-have for Kentucky, but they may not get it.
Yeah, I mean, all right, with that in mind, let's go flip side, Chris. I disagree with Maddie. I think for Kentucky, Lapidat has to be a victory. I mean, he's 17
that's a
at
must.
the 5 spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if that's the inflection point. No. But early on, you said that number 5 spot for the inflection point. I disagree. Like, I think it's 3 because I think
it's going to be tight, though. Like, that is a match that could, it could come down to that court deep in a third set or something. Like,
yeah, okay. I see. So my thinking there is, but in that case, what's the match scenario? Like, if that match is still in the third and it's still going deep, that means
Draxel beat Famba. That means Diallo beat Aguilar.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's really tough. Chris, knock some sense into us.
I don't like either one of your inflection points because I think TCU's a heavy favorite at 3, and I think Kentucky's a heavy favorite at 5. So I like Kentucky at 1, 2, 5. I like TCU at doubles 3 and 6. And so to me, the swing match ends up being at 4 with Musatelli and Fernley. So
just quickly, Kentucky is 23 and 2 at the number 3 single spot. TCU 22 and 3. Jong is 21 and 4 overall in dual match play, 16 and 3 at that 3 spot. Hurrian played most of the year at 2, but he's 7 and 0 at the number 3 single spot. Like, I'm not leaning anywhere. That's a battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hurrian, he prior to the tournament, he had been, I would say,
and Famba, by the way, has been better than
a little maybe,
year,
but he's playing great now.
Yeah, very true. But I would say just like Famba's been better than Draxel this year. I know name test wise, Draxel's still the bigger name, but Famba's been better. And again, God, is that Diallo Aguilar matchup just spicy? And as typical Chris fashion, picking against you, Juan Carlos Aguilar, he's got to stick to a brand here.
I picked him last match. Come on.
That's true. With that in mind, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have other Kentucky thoughts for me, Chris?
No, I mean, like I said, but I think that's, I'll say, I won't say unfortunately, but I have to stick with the pick I submitted in the bracket. And yes, I took before the tournament ever started, I took the sexy upset pick. I took Kentucky to win this match. I do think but I do think it's a very narrow pathway, which is 1, 2, 5 and find another that's unlikely to be 6. So I think, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be dubs, but I still think that for them to do it, I think they probably got to pull off Draxel, Diallo, and Lapidat and find another. If they lose one of those, I think it's a very tough road for them to grab another point. So it's probably not the most likely upset honestly, but it's the home-ish team, if you will.
It's not the most likely upset, but it's the one we got. And with that in mind, Maddie, final pick goes to you.
Yeah, I'm taking the Frogs here, guys. I'll go 4-2. I think Kentucky will make this exciting. I mean, it's not going to be one of those, matches that you want to sleep through. This will be very fun, very intense, but the margins are too thin. Chris just mentioned it. I mean, it's so razor thin for the Wildcats. I can't pick that. I mean, we got done talking about the floor, how high that is for TCU. So I think in the end, Kentucky will win a couple of matches here. I don't think they'll win the doubles point. I'll take TCU 4-2.
All right, I respect it. With that in mind, those are your quarterfinal previews. Again, first wave of matches, your top half of the bracket, Baylor versus Tennessee, TCU versus Kentucky, goes 4 p.m. Eastern time. Then your next match is Michigan, Ohio State, Florida, Virginia. Those are your 8 p.m. Eastern time matches. God, to play Florida. I'm really happy they're playing Florida, Virginia on the main courts because then I can hide on the back courts and cheer for my boys and no one will be able to see me. So that's probably a good thing for me moving forward. But it's going to be a spectacular day of tennis and all of that action, of course, available on the Tennis One app. Now, last thing quickly before we go, Super Regionals in the books. Top 8 seeds go 8-0. Top 8 seeds go 16-0, actually, between the men's and the women's. That said, 1,600 people in Baylor, 700 plus in Ann Arbor. And, you know, there are plenty other pockets of exceptional fan showings as well, Maddie. You were at one of them, as was I, very, very quickly. Super Regional, one site, Sweet 16. What are you? Which side are you?
No, I think I'm going to lean super regional because those top 8 teams really earn that. You know, you are battling all season long to be one of those top 8 schools, you know, and at that point you have the right to host that round of 16 match. So, I will stick with the super regional. I think it's exciting to get those fans out there and, you know, that's obviously at the NCAA turn, like it is fun to have more teams at the final site, right? I'm not going to lie. Like that is fun to have all of those teams there, but there's something that I kind of like about going through the year and earning one of those top 8, you know, spots to earn the right to host a super regional. So that's what I'd stick with that.
Chris, final word goes to you.
Yeah, I'm from a fan's perspective. I mean, that wants to see everything. I kind of like the 16, but I do think that I do think that there's actually a better opportunity right now, probably to grow the sport by keeping the super regional aspect, just because you've got 8 sites hosting really big matches. It gives you a chance to foster rivalries, get fans into it, create more buzz. Certainly you're going to get more buzz about 8 different sites hosting big matches than one site hosting it and some matches getting lost. So anything that helps bring a little more, you know, publicity and grow the sport, I'm for. I feel like there's a better chance of doing that with the super regional format right now.
I agree. And again, if you want to hear from all the coaches who have the experience to play in these environments, go check out our Cracked Interviews podcast. I think that Sweet 16 press row checks out. But with that said, that's our preview of our first round of action in Champaign men's quarterfinals. Again, first wave of matches, 4 p.m. Eastern time Thursday. Second matches starting 8 p.m. Eastern time. All of that action available on the Tennis One app. Of course, I'm excited to be on the coverage again, semifinals onward, and then for most of the individual action as well. And by the way, this is our men's preview podcast. Rest assured, we'll be starting our women's preview podcast in about 20 minutes here on this feed with John Parsons as well. And don't worry, I'll drag Chris's ass out there for a recap podcast. I don't know. Are you coming to Champaign, Chris?
I haven't figured it out. I'm probably bound to make an appearance at some point. I just don't know when. I mean, it's going to be undoubtedly like 1 a.m. in your hotel room, but whatever.
You know I wouldn't have it any other way. God willing, we'll be booty bumping by the end of the night. Yeah, in that single bed. I know you're not coming, Maddie, but obviously immensely grateful you were able to take the time to join us today. I know how busy you are. And, of course, huge thank you to all of you who joined us here. Hour 40 minutes, folks. That's how excited we are for this final weekend of action to begin. But we'll have recap pods for you as well as preview podcasts throughout the course of the action. You'll be able to find all that on our website, crackedrackets.com. Of course, a shout out to our friends at SwingVision, forefront of all things artificial intelligence and tennis. Learn more about them by clicking on the link into this podcast description. Of course, shout out to our friends at Turna as well. Email them, learn more by contacting sales@uniquesports.com. Of course, a shout out as well to super producer Daniel Westoff on the ones and twos. Makes all this content possible. With all that said, for our fantastic super producer Daniel Westoff, our 2 other members of the College Tennis Holy Trinity, Matt the Crack Stachowiak, Chris Halioris, our friends at SwingVision and Turner. From all of us here at both Cracked Rackets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Gentlemen, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
and we will see you all in about 20 minutes. Thanks, everyone.